I had a little bit of time on a Saturday night, so I came out and made myself a splice for the cooler hoses, and then just took the bolts out on the firewall here and dropped the heating unit out of the cab of the truck. This is what the backside looks like. There's the worst part of it is down in this corner here. I think that I could, if I soak this in enough stuff, I can basically get this off, and I can cut a new piece of metal for this and just reform a new metal for this, and then maybe bend it over on this section and just cover this stuff up. Maybe I can cut this out or something. I think I can fix a lot of this. This part especially, I just would have to figure out how to get the divot in here. I got to think about that. This is the divot that clears the bolts for the hood hinge. There's two captive nuts that are like right here. The backside of this, basically coming off this way, is the hood hinge on the passenger side, and this sort of makes clearance. So I just need to clean this stuff up, make a new gasket for the top of this thing. I'm gonna lightly move this over. The inside of this thing looks really good. The element here looks pretty good. I'm gonna bring this into the shop in a couple of minutes after I empty it out and bench test the actual blower unit and see if the blower unit actually works, because that would be kind of cool. And then the front side is in really nice shape. Looking at the just killer wiring job they did on this thing, I'm going to make some splices and clean this up, and while I've got these bare, I'll use my bench tester and see if I'm getting power to this thing or not. One of the things that I came upon this morning at a yard sale was a really nice set of Ideal wire strippers. Really nice little unit, so I'm going to put this to work right now. All right, I've just ground out the bolts here, 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 and here. These all came out okay. This is the bottom of the unit here, so it would stand that, you know, these bolts were probably fine. This one wasn't, probably because it was closest to the water, but I'm going to pull this off now and see what this thing looks like underneath. Okay. Here's the heating unit here. I mean, it's like the simplest thing imaginable. There's really not much to this. It's basically like an open box. The bottom of this doesn't look like it's in bad shape, and I know it's holding coolant because I had filled the radiator and it didn't leak, so that's a good sign. Looking on the bottom of this thing, I'm gonna probably have to cut out, I am definitely gonna have to cut out some of this down here to patch it up, but I'm gonna try to save this thing as much as I can. So I'll probably have to cut this seam. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go up to like here and then over, and then probably like over to here, over to like this area here. And then I'll have to find a way to fix this edge here somehow. Maybe, maybe not, we'll see. Overall, this thing is in really good shape. The gasket's a little smashed up. I should be able to fix that. I'm gonna take this unit out and put a new gasket in. I've got to see what the cage on this thing looks like. It looks like it's a little bent up here. So what I'm doing here is taking some Eastwood rust encapsulator and basically just hosing this entire area down with it. Everything under the dash, the entire right-hand side of the firewall, and the whole area around everything that I welded in last year, just to double check and make sure that nothing is going to rust after I put everything back in place. This whole thing is going to get painted with International Rattle Can Red after I'm done with it, but right now it's just a liberal application of this stuff everywhere I can see. What I'm doing here is using a bunch of old beer cartons as templates for the heat matting. Bring them into the truck, measure a bunch of stuff out, cut them down, use a bunch of painter's tape to basically cardboard template out everything, and then lay it back in before I start cutting out the heat matting. I think I've mentioned in previous videos, I've had a really good experience with this particular brand, Cool It by Thermotech. In my Scout, I found that it dropped temperatures at the firewall down by 15 degrees on really hot August days. So I'm just going to go with what I know, and I'm going to put this in the Travelall as well. Well, again, I'm back out here after 3 weeks away. I took a brief vacation, not brief, I took about a 2-week vacation with my family in Portugal, which was fantastic. If anybody gets the chance, I highly recommend it. It's a beautiful place to visit. The people are amazing, and the country itself is wonderful. But now I'm back out here. It's Saturday. It's middle of July, which is kind of crazy. Time is slipping away here. I'm doing a couple of different things on the truck today. I don't think it's supposed to rain anymore today, so I'm going to try to get back out and get back to things. I can't do anything with the dashboard because I'm still waiting on grommets. They are apparently ordered and supposed to be coming in the next couple of days, so probably next weekend I can get to that. There's a bunch of other stuff I can do under the dash, getting things ready, and then playing with some parts and some other things, so I'm going to get to it. I picked up a couple of these indicator gels that go inside these barrels for the indicator lights. I've got one on this side, but the other one that I had blew up on me. I'm not sure what happened to it, but it's gone. So I'm going to use this one and drop it in here and get this thing set up. Had a nice guy on Facebook Marketplace, sold me a bunch of parts, some of which I needed, some of which I didn't need, but I thought it would be nice to have a couple of spares. And so I scored that, and this was the big thing, getting a couple of these, so now I've got two. So I'm going to clean these up with some water, and then I'll drop this one in place. Another thing I got from the fellow on Marketplace was a set of 6364 specific door catches. These do not work on the later trucks because the door latch is different. This is the one that I've got. It's basically just like a lever, and it basically points down, and then when you click, it releases and it pops back up. The newer door releases are different, or the newer door latches are different, and thus the catches are different. So I've got another set of these, which is great. I've got a set of the 68s from the parts truck, and I think my friend Ray sent me another set of these as well with a parts stash. So good to have these too, because they go front and back. They also go back here as well. It's the same deal, same type of catch. So now I got a set of 4 of those. So I got an entire box of parts from IH Parts America, which had been on back order. They were waiting for one of the gaskets. This is a whole lot of door rubber that I've been waiting for a while. One of the things I'm trying to figure out right now is how this door rubber goes on the door. What I had on this door originally looked like this. You can probably see it up here. It's some kind of rubberish material. It had a piece of like rope on the middle of it that went around. I'm not sure where this came from or who put it in, but that was on the back doors. The front doors have what looks like the stuff that I have here, where it's basically, it's a set of rubber, and it's got a piece that goes up against this flat part of the door, and then another piece that compresses up against the inside jamb. And that's what I've got here. I got this new rubber, which looks like this. And this will go all the way around the door and underneath. What I'm wondering now, so I'm pretty sure I know the answer to that question, because the other thing is that the green doors from the green truck have rubber that looks just like this on all 4 doors. So I've answered that question for myself right now. The next question I've got to figure out is, where to get the stuff that goes around the inside lip here, which I think is probably more for soundproofing than anything else. What came on my truck, again, is rubber. There's some of it left here. Looks like this. And it's basically just like a C that got some sort of adhesive on the outside edge. The green truck had, it was like a metal backed C-clip or a C-channel type stuff that went all the way around. I didn't save any of that. I probably should have, just so I knew what I was looking for, but I'm gonna have to find that next from somewhere. I'm sure you can find that. It's probably made by a bunch of different makers. I'll see if I can find that in black and buy some. But just having the stuff for this part of the door will make a big difference, I think. So I will start. What I've done with this whole door is basically scraped all of that stuff off, and then I took a wire, it's not a wire brush, it's like a nylon brush on what I did with this was take a nylon brush on a drill and basically use that to get all of the adhesive and rubber and other stuff off of here without going through too much of the paint, which is, I'm trying to save as much of that paint as I could. I'm not going to repaint these doors anytime soon, so I'm just going to put this stuff on and call it good for now. So I got all of that stuff off the edges here. I'll clean all of this stuff up with acetone or something else and try to get this down to as clean as I can. Maybe hit it with a quick spray of the Rattle Can IH Red, and then put the gaskets on the door so the doors will be nice and sealed. So looking through the box, I've got 4 of the door rubbers here, so one for each door. That'll go on the outside. I've got the body side glass seal for the driver's side. That'll go on this side here to replace this gasket, which you can see there's like an 1.5 inch gap up here. There's a bad gap here, so when it rains and this thing doesn't have the cover on it, I get little streams of water down on the inside, and they go down the inside wall, and I want to get that cleaned up as soon as I can. So I'm going to have the guy that did the other side come back out. I'll pop this out myself, clean it up, clean up the edges and everything, make sure they're all ready to go, and then have him come back and put this glass in. And if this glass doesn't go in, if something happens and it cracks, I've got the spare in the garage. And then finally, I've got another set of rubber, which is for lower bottom of the door for the C-Series door seal kit. I'm not entirely sure what this goes to. I've got to call back IHBA and find out, because I'm a little confused as to what this is for. But we'll sort that out with them. And then from Amazon, the other thing I got was a new heater valve to replace the old one. This is one that I got from the Scout, or I bought one for the Scout, and it works really well. I'm really happy with it. It's basically the exact same thing I'll need for the Travelall, so I'm going to use this and replace this while I've got the cooling system sort of disassembled. That's what the heating unit looks like in the truck right now. Replacing this made a huge difference. Before, I couldn't move this this valve at all in the old metal one. It was completely rotted and rusted. This is super secure and works really well, so I'm going to use another one of these. Here's an interesting thing I've noticed about the dash panel that came out of the red truck. If you look closely at all these dials, black background, silver background, black background, gold background, other. Looking at the control panel from the green truck, all of these are silver. Very interesting. This one has 90,604 miles indicated. The red truck has 40,896 miles indicated. At some point, I'd love to get black backgrounds for at least these two. I'll have to look out for those when I go to swap meets and stuff. I'm gonna just put it in there for now because these are, I think they're relatively easy to take out. We'll take a look at that in a minute. So it's actually a little bit harder than I thought it was, but I mean, basically it's just, there are, well, this one's a bit different. These, oh yeah, okay, so it's two bolts. There's a screw here, and then they just pop out from the back. So later on down the line, I can replace these if need be, just by pulling the front of the column out, or the front of the control panel out, and swapping them. So that's not a big deal. All right, interesting. I went out to Home Depot and got myself a new canopy. The one I had last year, we left it out during a storm, and it imploded like these things often do. But $119, I think, later. I did have to climb up 3 of the shelves to get it down off the shelf because my local Home Depot is terrible. But anyway, it's in here now, so I'm waiting for the truck to cool down, and then I can get back to work behind the dashboard here. What I'm going to do today is put this final piece of heat shielding in, clean up the rest of that. I've got to spray out the other side over there and just keep working behind the dash and get it ready for installation of the dashboard itself. This is just some boring time lapse of me working on the dash vents that I had put in last year, cleaning them up, making sure everything is sealed up good, covering everything with encapsulator and painting everything. Before I put the dash back in, I just want to make sure it's nice and clean. While I'm waiting for some paint to dry and some other things to, some rust inverter to dry, I hit this whole lip with acetone, scrubbed it all down. A little bit there I gotta get hit, but for the most part it's completely clean. So I'm gonna give this thing a try. I'm gonna try putting the rubber on this door, and we're gonna see how it works. What I'm doing right now is cleaning up the bottoms of the doors. They are, actually, for what this truck is and how old it is, they're in incredibly good shape. There's a little bit of rust here. This gasket actually isn't bad. What I've done on the back door there is basically take all of this stuff off and clean this out. I just hit the underside lip with a bunch of rust encapsulator. I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to go back and clean it up. I was going to do the same with this, but I think I'm going to leave it for now. Actually, what I might do is I might take this bottom, I think I'm going to take this bottom gasket off and clean this up, and then let that dry really good, and then I'll come back and put the gasket on. So I think that's what I'll do here, but you can see on this side, I've got it hit with a whole bunch of encapsulator. I've got to hit the rest of that bare metal with encapsulator and just cover it, make sure it's good and covered and sealed up so that this thing doesn't get any worse. But these doors, I still can't believe the condition of how good these doors are. All the way around there, they're solid metal. It's incredible. They're actually in better shape than the green doors. Now I understand what they sent me, what this other set of gasketry they sent me was. I just pulled this off the bottom of the driver's door, and this is basically set up. I just cut a cross section off there. You can sort of see, I'll get my fingers out of the way. You can sort of see that it looks like a T almost, and what it is it tucks up underneath the door like this, and then this part here, I guess, closes with the door. I've only got 2 of these, so I'm gonna have to order another set of these, but I've got these to start with, and I'm going to put them on this door and that door. I'm toying, well, I am going to tear this out. This gasket actually is good. The two rear doors on this truck, the two gaskets on the rear doors were terrible. The front gaskets actually aren't in bad shape. I'm going to do all four of them, but these are the primary ones right now, the two rear doors. So what I'm going to do is cut that and cut this side here, and then run the bottom strip across. Once I'm going to let the encapsulator tack and basically cure under there for probably another hour or so before I put that in. But that's the plan for the next part on this door. The other thing I've done here is just hit this and this. These were rusty areas under this silver lip. This one I actually ground out a while ago, hit it with some encapsulator, and it has started rusting again. So I cleaned it up, encapsulated it again, and then hit it with some paint this side as well. It's not pretty, but I mean, again, I'm not repainting this entire truck. I'm just basically covering what I can and cleaning up what I can. The other thing I did was hit this section of the cowl, which I actually hadn't painted originally. Now it's painted. There's a little bit of rust there, so I hit that with converter and then painted that up, so that should be clean and good. Just a lot of little touch-ups like that right now. I've got the last piece of heat matting on the front part of the firewall. I need to cut down just a little bit here. There's a little bit of a dip here, and trim off a little bit here, up in this area here, but that part is in, so most of the firewall is covered now. I got to figure out if I'm going to bring it down or what I'm going to do next with this thing, but it's nice to have that done. Now what I'm doing is cutting out the heat matting where I need to get rid of it. I'm going to leave all the holes that I don't need to worry about right now, but cut out the stuff that I don't. So this is the back plate of the heater box, and the hoses line up with that hole and that hole. And then those are the two mounting bolts, and there's one over here. That lines up with this one and this one, so I'm going to cut these two out now. These are the bolts for the heater box. These are the cooling holes. This is the main bulkhead connector. And what I've been doing now is using the one spare that I have to try to figure out how I'm going to do this, because what has to happen is, and you can see this, the bulkhead connector has a divot, and so this side is basically the engine side. This is the interior passenger side, and what I've got to be able to do is get the grommet through the firewall, and then this whole thing basically into the grommet. And I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to do that, because the way this works is, I don't know if you can see this, this part of the grommet it's basically sloped, so it's built to pull through the hole. So basically this whole part has to go into the engine compartment. This part has to fit around the actual socket or the actual bulkhead connector itself, and then this whole part has to be pushed back or pulled from the passenger side until this part fits into the passenger compartment, or this whole thing fits into the hole. So I think what's got to happen, I'm going to test it out. This is my spare, this is actually the loom that came out of the truck, and I've got this one good grommet here. The other grommets are bad, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to test this. I'm going to heat this up with a heat gun, and I'm going to basically pull this grommet forward so that it's off of this whole thing. I'll feed this wire loom through, and then I'll go into the engine compartment and put this grommet back on, and then try to pull it into the passenger compartment. I'm going to see if I can get this process down so that when I'm actually putting the whole unit in, I can do it the right way. We'll see how that goes. So this is where I got dumb and decided I was going to do what I said I wasn't going to do, and basically hang the dash back in place without totally reinstalling it. What I'm trying to do here is figure out what connectors I need and what's going to go through the firewall and how everything hooks back up. This was actually really instructive because I found that I needed a whole bunch of Packard 56 connectors on the other side of the firewall to connect back up with all of the bulkhead connectors on the wiring harness itself. It was at this point I realized it was 6:30 and I had nothing to eat, so I ran down the street for some dinner. Nothing better than pizza and beer on the tailgate of your Scout. I'm paused on the dashboard right now because I've got to wait for the grommets to come in, and I've got to figure out how to get that big grommet in there. I've tried a couple of different ways and I don't really know how to do it yet. I've got a couple of the connections hooked up. The dashboard connectors are hooked up, the brakes are hooked up, the brake line or the relay is hooked up, the high beams are hooked up. As much of the underside of the dash is in as I can get at this point, and I actually put in the new heater valve while I was over there. And then I've got a bunch of the stuff behind here hooked up, but I'm gonna just sort of let it sit and wait until I can get the rest of the connectors in here, and then I can hook up everything, actually hook it up. And what I'm probably going to do is I'll push the connectors through, connect them up before I get all the grommets and everything in, and field test this thing. Hook up the battery, see if anything burns down. I've got to actually put the fuses in. I'll probably, if I have time, I might try that tomorrow. I've got all the fuses I need for this, so I'll hook up all the fuses, hook up the last of the elements that need to get hooked up. I still got to get the windshield wipers hooked up, and I think the light switch needs to get hooked up. I think all of the other main wiring is good. It's just a matter of those bulkhead connectors at this point. So yeah, I'll give that a shot. Luckily this thing is not that hard, so the wiring is relatively simple. So the other thing that's accomplished is all of this molding is now in. The actual rubber molding is in, and the molding on the bottom is in. And it looks like it's doing pretty well. It's all in place. I used the 3M stuff. That's all cleaned up and in place. I am noticing that when I close the door, I don't see any gaps or anything when I look through here, except for, I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, you can see right through there. The top of the door is not closing close enough to the truck for some reason. I don't know why that is. The other thing I'm going to buy is I've got to find some good U-shaped molding for the inside, and that's going to help with the rest of the, I think, the water ingress. The fact that I can see through that door troubles me. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do there. Clearly this door's got to be adjusted, but I've got to figure out how to do that. So I'm taking some time off on a new project. Cut out a bunch of 16 gauge steel and cleaned up the back side of the heater box. And what I'm going to do is carefully cut out the bad rod on this thing and weld in new metal. I want to keep this because I can't press in this divot. This divot's for the heater box itself, and I'm not going to be able to reproduce that. I could try to build it and weld it up, but that would just take way too much time. So I'm going to try to do the easy, smart thing and see if I can weld this up first. I'm going to lop another probably ½ inch off the top of that because I want to keep it away from this. And then I think I can trace out what this thing looks like and set it up for a butt weld. So that's going to be my next project. Because I'm all about the idea of welding and just basically looking for the chance anytime I can weld anything. I'm going to try to weld this tonight. We'll see how it goes. Alright, so there it's tacked in. I'm going to go and clean up my tool bench outside, let this cool down a little bit, and then come back and start filling in. I'll grind it, hit it with the wire wheel and wire it down, and then start filling these in. Looking pretty good so far. Here's our final piece. This is the outside, so this is the side that goes up against the firewall of the truck, and this is the inside. I think it looks pretty good for what we're doing here. Doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to be solid. And I think once I round this corner off, I'll round that off tomorrow, this thing cools down. I think we're in pretty good shape here. How this goes on here is flips over, and the hoses go through like that. So once this is cooled off, I'll hit it with some encapsulator and clean it up. And that does it for the backside. The next piece I'm gonna have to do is this section here. I'm gonna have to cut out a whole bunch of this and reform it, probably back to here and go around, because this has all been sitting and wet. This part isn't so bad. I might be able to get away with keeping this. I'll have to wire wheel it maybe tomorrow and see what I can do. But this is, clearly bad. Everything else, I mean, this can get bent back into shape. The actual cooling unit itself holds air. I've tested this and I can't get it to run, so I'm going to see if the blow motor is bad or not. But I'm going to completely disassemble this thing and get it cleaned up, and hopefully be able to put this back in a couple of weeks too. By the way, I figure I should do a quick mention. I'm using an Eastwood MiG 140. I got this on sale from them. Super nice inverter MiG. Runs off of my crappy electrical system in my crappy shed here. It has been fantastic. I have absolutely nothing bad to say about this unit. It's been great. It's done everything I've needed to do. It did all the welding for me on the Cowa last year. Did a fantastic job. I've got nothing but good things to say about it. I'm now going to put it away. I'm getting ready to cut out a section of this metal from here up to about here. I'd forgotten, or I hadn't realized that there were some pinholes and stuff up here. So I'm going to take it out from here over to here, and then I think probably what I'll do is I'll cut another section here to here, and I'll just bend this and then bend that and do them separately and then weld them in. I've got the motor is out, and I took the weather stripping off. I'll have to see if I can find some more weather stripping or something to put around the outside of this, but I've got to clean all this stuff up after I get this stuff done. So cutting is next. So I've cut the worst of the rust out of this thing, and this is what I've got left. I had to cut this corner out and reform a piece here, so I'm gonna tack that in on this section here. And then I've got this top piece, which goes like that. I was lucky enough, I already had a piece of metal that I had put through a metal brake. So I had cut a piece down, but I basically found that piece and just basically trimmed this section out and then put it in successive waves in this wide vise that I've got on the table. And as I'm welding this in, I'll just tap it in. I'm going to take my time on this one and take it nice and slow, but I think we're looking pretty good. So I'm going to bust out the welder and start tacking this piece in. Alright, so I've put a new corner in this thing. It's not the prettiest welding that I've ever done, but I'm not going to win any awards, and I'm not trying to. Now I'm going to tack the top part in. I'm going to start with these butt welds here and get some clamps and clamp this in and clamp the sides in, and then I've got to do some tacking down on here to get this to work together. But yeah, I'm going to just slowly take my time on this part. I got this panel tacked in now, and it's actually looking pretty good. I've done just a little bit of tapping with the hammer. I got to tap a little bit right there to get it to flush up, but I'm just going to keep slowly going around the edges and try to clean it up, and we'll see how well I can do in the next say half an hour or so, because it's almost 7 o'clock and it's way past dinner time. So the steel is welded in place. I think I'll probably hit this with a light coat of mud just to clean it up. It's a little bit bowed because it got, a little hotter than I wanted it to because I'm impatient, but overall I think it did pretty well. There's a couple of divots in there, and things like that, but again, a nice smooth skim coat, and I think I can clean that up really quickly. Overall, I think it came together really well, and it's going to be pretty solid, so I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to let this cool down, and then I'll come back up tomorrow and probably just douse this entire thing with rust converter, because I can't get any sort of wire wheel or anything in there to clean it up. So the whole thing will get rust converter, and I'll just make sure those welds are all cleaned up and everything, and just keep this thing moving. And then the next thing I've got to figure out is what color gray this is, so I can maybe have something matched to mixed and matched for it, because I've got to not only spray this, but I've got to spray all the door cards too, and I don't think this color is going to be on any shelf in Home Depot, so that'll be the next thing up. Tonight what I'm doing is cleaning up the connections on all of the main bulkhead connectors. You can see this one is pretty well wasted. I've got another spare that I'm going to swap these out for. On this other side over here, this one looks okay. I mean, that could be a lot better. I might see if I can buy another one of these. I might actually buy 2 of these and one of these. This one is actually in the best shape of all. I'm going to pop all of these out, make sure they're nice and clean, and put them all back in order and get them ready to hook up to the bulkhead connectors. And if I get the chance tonight, I'm going to do a test run and see if I can get this thing to light up. Here's the old connector. This thing was definitely past its prime, so I'm glad to have that out. I'm glad to have bought another one. Here's the new one. All of the connections are now cleaned up and shiny, so that should be good. I don't have a replacement for this one, and I was able to pull the first wire out. The second wire is a little bit harder, and as I try to get in here and jimmy these things out, I'm afraid I'm going to snap them. So what I'm going to try to do is sand these down the way they are and keep using this, and I'll order a new one of these probably tonight, and I'll get it in. But for tonight's purposes, I'm going to see if I can just keep using this for now. I'll just try to clean up the connections a little bit better and put them in, and we'll see how we do. At this point, I started connecting up what I could to the main bulkhead connector, which was basically the lower connector and the 2 main power leads, basically just screwing those back into the terminals. I didn't mess with the larger one just because it seems very brittle at this point. After I made my way over to the other side, the connector that you see right above the windshield washer bottle broke into 2 pieces when I started pulling the leads out. So what I'm basically doing now is just taping it together so I can put the leads back in and leave it the way I found it until I can get a new connector in the mail. So this connector fell apart in my hands. It actually broke into 2 pieces. I am not going to plug this in until I get a new connector to replace it, so I'm not going to be able to fire this thing up, or at least hook up the battery tonight. I am going to clean out that connector over there next. we'll see what that one looks like. But this and that are going to get replaced just for the hell of it. I can't do anything else with the electrical, so I took my plastic scraper and scraped out all of the weather stripping on the passenger side rear door. You can sort of see here. Most of it's out. I just wiped it down with some acetone. I got to hit it again when I can see better. It's getting dark. This door is the worst out of all of them. It's got the worst rust damage, which is to say not a ton. I mean, there's a little bit there. The inside of this is actually in better shape than the passenger door, but when I got the truck, this whole door card was rusty and in bad shape, so I took it off. So this was the worst weather stripping out of the entire truck. So I will be happy to get this one installed and cleaned up. I'm probably going to call it for the evening because it's getting dark, but this is where we are right now. If you've made it this far in the video, you might be interested in some merch I've got for sale on threadless.com to keep this project going. I'll put a link down below in the description. Thanks for watching.